and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I had stopped during the last segment because we ran out of time talking about how to take care of instruments, where to put them, making sure they're not too hot, they're not too cold, they're not in an attic, they're not in a cellar, keeping them in warm room temperature, normal room temperature. I'm going to continue with that today, and I want to mention about pianos. Pianos should never be left on an outside wall of a home because it picks up the outside temperature. If you stand by an outside wall in a home and it's freezing cold outside, you're going to get some of that coldness. They shouldn't be left close to a window for the same reason. What's going to happen is that they're going to pick up the temperature of the outside to a certain degree. It is always best to leave a piano in the middle of a room. Now, I know a lot of people who have pianos, especially grand pianos, they will put them in a room by themselves. They will have a piano room or a music room, and they stick them more toward the middle. That's really probably the best. You can really make an instrument go out of tune if it gets too hot or if it gets too cold. And so I'm really particular about where I leave my instruments. I don't have a piano. I do have some small keyboards, but I'm never going to leave them in a window, and I'm not going to leave them on an outside wall. They'll be in a place where they're well protected, and it's important to do that. An instrument that's well taken care of will last for years and years and years, but an instrument that you're careless with will develop problems because they haven't received the correct amount of care. So keep them in a case if you're not using them, or keep them on a table if you're not using them for a short period of time. Make sure they're protected. Soft cases are better than no cases at all. I don't know if I had a chance to show you. This is a soft case. It's plastic. I do keep instruments in them. Sometimes instruments, when you buy them, don't really have a case. This little instrument recorder is from Korea. It has all kinds of the language printed on it. I don't know if you can see that. But there's practically no protection in this for an instrument. I've been known to actually make instrument cases that are better than the ones that they have come in by using boxes and stuff that's stable and secure. Sometimes I've used duffel bags and so forth. Here's another soft case. Anything that's plastic or cloth is going to be a soft case, and it does afford some protection. It just doesn't afford a lot of protection. So just leave your pianos where they won't get too hot or too cold, and I realize that can be an issue, especially if you don't have a whole lot of space. A lot of people have spinets, which are small pianos, and they just want to stick them on an outside wall. But that's not good for them. Better to leave them on an inside wall or in the middle of the room. Now, when you have lessons, when you start taking lessons, you're going to learn how to hold an instrument, how to put it together, how to blow in the mouthpiece, how to blow across the mouthpiece if it's a case of a flute, how to care for the instrument, and how to care for the mouthpiece and the reeds. Also the cork, because you can get cork grease, and everything else you need to know about taking care of them. We are going to go into that to a certain degree. Let me put this up. To be able to play good music, this is what you're going to learn. You're going to have to understand what time signatures are. You're going to understand what key signatures are, be able to read music, finger the notes, recognize the notes on the staff, play notes in the correct timing, breathe properly into the instrument. There are right and wrong ways. I had a friend of mine, who wanted to learn how to play the flute. I offered to teach her, and she said, no, that's not necessary. The flute is simple to play. All you have to do is blow in it. I says, oh, yeah? Not exactly. That's not how it works. Oh, I can teach myself. All I'll do is blow into it. It'll work fine. 2 or 3 weeks later, I see her, and she says, I can't make the flute play. There's something wrong with it. I says, why don't you let me teach you to do it right? Then it'll play. No, it should be simple. All I need to do is blow on it. As far as I know, she's still not playing the flute. She can't get a sound out of it. It's not as easy as it looks. You have to train an embouchure so that the muscles work properly. So you have to play in the correct timing. You have to breathe properly and tongue the notes properly, and there's also such a thing as having stage presence and behavior on the stage, and other incidental things that you will learn. Choosing the instrument for the correct instrument for whatever solo you want to play, writing music, choosing extra instruments to play, good practice habits, and being able to interpret the music that you play. Now, I want to put this up. What about using instruments in bad weather? This always irritates me. People play instruments out in the cold. They're in marching bands. I've done it. Everybody's done it. If you're playing a woodwind or if you're playing a brass or drums, you're likely to be playing at some point the instruments on the outside. Woodwinds and brass, any instrument, should not be played below a certain temperature. They can actually freeze up. We used to have the coldest imaginable Thanksgivings that you could even imagine, and we would be wearing gloves and shoes. Our feet would be absolutely frozen. Our hands would be so cold they wouldn't hardly move, but the instruments would freeze up, and you might be able to play only 2 notes. I've been marching in bands during parades and with my one of my saxophones, and it would only play 2 notes because everything else was completely frozen. I've played in football games when we have been in the stands because we're doing a halftime show, but we're playing in the stands when we're not in the field, and it'd be pouring rain or snow. We'd be holding our instruments under ponchos. We'd be wearing these ponchos to protect them, and I'd be sticking a clarinet underneath the poncho to see if I could keep it as dry as I could. Now, why would anybody do that to an expensive instrument? You know, I think that it's a sign of the times. You've got to have your music show no matter what the temperature, but it's very, very damaging to the instruments. If you're in a situation where you have to play outside and the weather is awful, protect it as much as you can. Wear coverings for it. See if you can keep it under cover as much as you can. And then when you get it home, then put it on a table, put the heat up a little, let it have warm air, not in the case, just where it can have warm air. I can remember our music being so wet it would stick together. I would go home and all the marches that we played, I'd be peeling the music off from each other, laying it on the table so that it would dry, so I could use it again, hoping that it wouldn't smudge. A lot of the printed music that you get doesn't smudge, but it can just get all bent, you know, so it's not flat and straight. I do have a concern about playing instruments when the weather is not right. And now I have some instruments that when it's pouring rain, they don't go out of the house because I don't have the proper cases to keep them safe. And I'm not going to even be playing them outside, but even getting them from my apartment to the studio can be a problem to them if they're rare. And so I think we need to take better care of our instruments. So the places that you would play outside, marching bands for football games, parades, outside concerts, extreme cold weather, especially in the winter, and sometimes when you get to parades on the 4th of July, it's so hot. That's not good for the instrument either. Extreme temperatures are just not good for instruments. One of my nephews gave me an instrument. It was a little song flute. And he says it won't play, but we don't want it anyway. He kept it in the car for about 2 or 3 years, and they were flipping it around, tossing it around. Here, Auntie Pat, you can keep this one. It wouldn't play. And I thought to myself, no wonder, but I worked with it. I bathed it down with alcohol. I let it warm up. I let it sit there. I would blow in it a little bit. When you blow into an instrument, it's going to warm up because your air is going to be warm. And then gradually, after a period of weeks, it did play, and it plays pretty well. But it was like I had to gradually get it to a situation where it could play. So I want to take this down here. And the next thing we want to do is to start in terms of learning how to play. I'm going to put up another notebook here. when you play an instrument and you've been playing for a long time, it's just a very simple thing. You pick it up and you play, and that's it. But you stop to think of everything that you do to even start to play. You have to know that your left hand goes on top of an instrument, the right hand goes on the bottom. And this is true of all of the woodwinds. The thumb hole has to be covered with the left hand. The mouthpiece has to be in the mouth about 1/3 of the way up. You have to have your teeth on top of the mouthpiece. And I'm going to show you this. I'm just listing it off for now. When you put the mouthpiece in your mouth, you have to have your teeth on top of the mouthpiece. But the lower lip doesn't go on the mouthpiece. You cover the teeth with your lower lip so that it's the lip that goes on the bottom of the mouthpiece. The sides of your mouth have to be kind of squeezed closed. You have to breathe into the instrument gently. You have to put your tongue on the lower part of the mouthpiece so you can start to tongue. I'll show you how to do that. And then you have to finger your notes. And so what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to demonstrate all of this. If you are a new student and you're just learning how to play, how do you begin? Well, I know how most people begin, and it's not right. They grab the instrument and they just blow. And that's what it sounds like. What they have to know is how to hold the instrument properly, how to put the mouthpiece in your mouth properly, and what I'm saying about the recorder, because I'm demonstrating all of this on the recorder, it's true of any instrument that you play. First of all, you have to know how to put the instrument together, and the teacher will show you how to do that, and it's pretty simple. I like to do it with this one because it's so easy to do. Usually the instrument will be in the case, and if it's in the case, it'll have its 3 parts for a recorder. Now, other instruments are different. They have 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. And you have to know that you don't just jam it together. You take and gently kind of work your way in, kind of twist it and work your way in for both parts of it, or however many parts you have. And you get it set and get it in position. Very important for the flutes and the piccolos and the clarinets. They do not sit in a case all put together. You have to know how to put them together gently, easily, so you do not damage them. For clarinets, it's particularly important because they have some metal pieces toward the middle of the instrument, and if you jam them together, you'll damage them and not be able to play. You have to hold the instrument and slide another part in it and let the metal drop where it's supposed to. So it gets to be a little complicated, but we're not dealing with clarinets. So once you get the instrument together, then you have to hold it properly, which would mean the thumb goes right on the thumb hole in the back. It covers it completely. And then you have all of these tone holes in the front. And you just take with your left hand always on top, you take your index finger and put it on the first one, even as your thumb is on the thumb hole in the back, and just feel your way down. Now, when you're first starting to play, you're probably not going to use all those holes, but this is the correct way to hold the instrument. When you first start to play, you'll learn how to play a B, because that's really the easiest note to play. It's not the top note. The top note would be a C, but it's the easiest note to play. You would have your hand in position. You would put your finger on your right hand just enough to help to balance the instrument, and the other thumb goes on the instrument and back, not in a specific hole. The only hole in the back is the thumb hole on the left hand for octaves and so forth. But you would hold it like this, basically. And then when you put the instrument in your mouth, you put it in about 1/3 of the way. And you put your teeth, your top teeth go on top. The bottom lip covers the lower teeth. So you have it kind of curved in, and it's the lips that go on the bottom. Now I'm playing octaves, and the way I'm playing octaves, I'm drawing the thumb down a little bit and making it what's called a half hole situation, where you're just barely opening that hole. That'll bounce that note up an octave, and that's how you play a lot of octaves on the recorder. Different instruments have different octave mechanisms to help you to get to that octave. There's right and wrong ways of doing it, but for the recorder, usually all you do is you slip your thumb down. Now that's not always true for all of the notes, but it is true for most of the notes. On a D, if I play a low D, I play the octave by lifting all the fingers except for this one. And I take that off too. So there's only that one finger, and I'm balancing it with my finger down here just to help it balance so I don't drop it. But when you are beginning, all you're doing is just getting your first note. So you put the mouthpiece in your mouth, your finger is covering the tone hole in the back, your thumb, your index finger is holding the first one, the other instruments, the other fingers are in position, the instrument goes in your mouth, about maybe not quite of a third up. The instruments, the C melody doesn't have a huge mouthpiece. Then what you would do, once you get used to that, then you just add more fingers. One thing that you should be doing is holding tones. Holding tones are a pain. Nobody likes to do them. But what it will do for you, it will develop your diaphragm, it will develop your lungs so that you can hold a note for a very long period of time. Before my heart surgery, I could hold notes for a very long period of time. I would say, well, let's see how long I can hold this note. And I would take a note, and it would be on different instruments, because I taught different instruments. And I just held it, and I held it, and I held it, and I held it. And they're getting worried because I'm not breathing, but I'm still playing. After the heart surgery, I don't have as much air as I used to have, plus age factors into that too. And but I can still hold notes for quite a long period of time. And what's helped me the most, I think, is the fact that I have never smoked a cigarette in my life. If you are a smoker, it's going to be hard on your lungs to get your lungs in position to be able to play for a very long period of time without hardly feeling it. I was with a group, it was an orchestra, and I was playing, and they said, Pat, you want to jam? And I said, sure, and I had my instrument out, and we're playing, and all of a sudden the piano player realized I wasn't breathing. And all of a sudden she stopped. Pat, breathe, breathe, come on, breathe. I had plenty of air, I was fine. But she noticed I wasn't taking breaths. She thought I was in trouble, and I wasn't, not at all. So you can develop the ability to hold notes for a longer period of time. It will help you to improve your tone. It will help to improve your lungs and your diaphragm. You'll be able to get a better tone, and you'll be able to play for long periods of time without even thinking about it. I used to practice 4 and 5 hours a day sometimes if I were working on a solo. Didn't bother me a bit. And the time just flew. I was one of those people who really liked to practice, and I really did like to practice. And my father used to come up where I was practicing and say sometimes, Pat, you need to go out and play with other children. But I was practicing all the time because I loved it. So the holding tone is just taking a note and holding it for as long as you can. Keeping it steady, keeping it smooth, not fading out and getting louder. That will really help you immeasurably. Also, it'll help you with learning how to finger notes and help you with how your embouchure is. When you first start out, your embouchure is going to be very tired. In other words, the muscles that you use around your mouth to hold the position that you have to hold in order to use the mouthpiece correctly, that's an embouchure. That embouchure is going to be tired. And when I have a student that I'm teaching for the first time and they're new, I don't want them practicing very long at a time. You're not going to get better by forcing yourself to practice when you know your lips are too tired to do it. All you're going to do is make your lips more tired. If you are tired, and I used to ask students this, are you tired yet? Yeah, I'm a little tired. Do your lips hurt? Yeah, they're sore. Take a break. Don't force it. You know, athletes sometimes like to go past the pain. That's not the way to do it, not in music. It's better for you to stop, rest, and when your muscles have recovered again, go for it another 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever you can. I would expect my students to practice, the people who are just beginning, for 4 or 5 minutes at a time, maybe not even that. A beginning student, maybe not even more than 2 minutes. Now, that wouldn't be a problem with the piano, but with the woodwinds and with the brass, you have to have your mouth involved because you have to have a correct embouchure. And until you build that up, you're going to get weak and you're going to get tired and you're going to get a little sore. It's not horrible, but you're going to know when it's time to stop. Then stop. Don't push it. You know, don't try to be a hero. Just let it rest and then eventually pick it up again. So we have several 5-minute sessions during the day. As you get older, as you get stronger, or even if you start instruments when you're older, you're going to have the same problems. And what's going to happen is your embouchure will get stronger, you'll be able to play longer, you won't notice it as much, and pretty soon you're playing for quite a while. But that is the correct thing. So as a beginning student, you hold your instrument like this, you put the instrument in your mouth, now you tongue, you don't just blow. You know, just blowing doesn't sound that good. You put your tongue in back of your teeth as if you're saying ta or tu, and you get a good distinct note. Your tongue is actually going on the back of the mouthpiece as you're saying that, because your teeth are on top. Your lower teeth are protected by the lower lip covering them, and all you have to do is as if you're talking to it. Ta, tu, ta. And you'll be able to produce a tone. Now, this is just the beginning of what I'm going to teach you. I'm just going right from the beginning on up to more advanced work. So this is the first thing. Hold the instrument right, blow into it, but tongue at the same time. Stop when you're tired, and then start again. And only as I would teach one note at a time. That's the B. Most books, most music books teaching students who are beginning do the same thing, and it's usually that B that they start off. It's much easier to finger than the C, and it's much easier to finger than some of the other notes. So I'm going to close it here. We've run out of time. I'll do some review work next week, and we'll begin again, and you'll become more advanced as you go along. Plus, I'll teach you how to read notes and timing, understand timing, and so forth. So we'll close it for now. Please join me next time.